And there we go. We will have our volume up. And greetings and salutations, travelers. Welcome back to the Inn of Planar Crossroads, and welcome back to our misadventures in the southern... Well, no, I almost said it wrong. Our misadventures continued. Our misadventures continued game. And we are back with Adonijah and Caesar, his character. And before we jump into the game, first, some announcements. A disclaimer, this is a family-friendly-ish type of podcast, so nothing crazy, that no foul language that the kids are going to have to worry about or stuff like that. This is safe to watch with your kids, assuming that they watch, Saturday morning cartoons from the 90s or 80s or whatever. Assuming they watch cartoons, they can watch this. Or listen to it, to be more accurate, because there's not a lot to watch. But, continuing with our announcements, Patreon is going on for the Inn of Planar Crossroads. If you want to support us, you can support us via Patreon. It is just look for the Inn of Planar Crossroads. You can also support us on Subscribestar if you support people on there instead. That's up to y'all. We have a presence on both, and that leads into our next announcement, because we have a giveaway that we do every month for patrons of the Giant tier or higher on Patreon, or the Fluff tier or higher on Subscribestar. So if you want to do either one of those and get in on that drawing, it is available. And this upcoming drawing, I'm pretty sure it'll be pretty cool. It'll be pretty cool. So you can keep your eyes and ears open for that. I'm not announcing it just yet because I'm not quite sure when I'm going to post this one. So it may be in April or it may be May. So whichever. The final announcement I think we have is that the Inn of Planar Crossroads, as of this recording, is almost to 500 subscribers. So once we reach 500 subscribers, we're going to be doing a giveaway of 2 physical items, and then probably a one-shot. So if you want to get in on any of that, all you have to do is be a subscriber. So, and watch for the announcement video. So that is everything I think that we have. So let's go ahead and get back into the game itself. And as you guys might have known by now, always less than 5 minutes on the announcements. And I'm watching the clock. Yep, still less than 5. Alright, so when last we left Caesar, he came into Crosstown because something seemed off. And he journeyed through Crosstown and was somewhat cautious because none of the individuals that sell at their carts were there. The food looked like it had just been left. The group, normal gathering places like the Golden Grain Inn were empty. Even Moon's room was empty, and there was no sign of anyone. With that being the case, Moon looked around a bit more, flew over, did a little jig as a skeleton on top of a roof, and he... Caesar. And as Caesar kind of looked around and remembered a story that Moon had told him, because they've kind of met and know of each other, and they're not that far off in age. So the story he remembered was when the Shire Reef and Moon went down below into the sewers, and he decided to check there. I mean, he checked everywhere else. Well, not everywhere else. He checked in other places, kind of overviewed the city, and thought maybe something was going on down below. So he flew over and went down a drain. He explored the sewers just a little bit, following the now more clearly marked signs to the city's storage room, the city's subterranean storage room, and he found himself in that storage room after getting through a locked door. There was nobody there, but there was a large crack in the wall. Not substantially large, where, oh my goodness, where'd that crack come from? But rather, it looked old, and it looked like it was easier for a smaller creature to squeeze through, so he changed into a smaller creature. And after doing so, he found that it led down and sloped down, and the type of stone kind of changed. It became moist and cool. That normal moist and cool temperature that you find in subterranean places. And he found himself in the dark, and he wanted... he was changed into a creature that could see all right in the dark, normal darkness, but this seemed to be very, very dark. And he, even in his cat form, his eyes weren't harvesting enough light to be able to really see anything. So he decided to try and light a torch. Upon doing so, he failed, but as with the rules of open legend, the story continued, because he snapped off accidentally one of the metal arrowheads, and it fell down the chasm he almost walked into, and went ting 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 ting, and he began to hear boom, boom boom, boom 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 boom. Drums, drums in the deep. And that's where we're going to pick up. Alright, Adonijah. So, tell the people hi.
Hi.
Alright.
I turned into a lemur and climbed down.
Well, first off, you want... let me kind of reset the scene. You're in this almost complete darkness. It's very hard to see in your little house cat form that you're in. And... you are hearing those drums down in the deep, and voices, lots of voices. You remember seeing that you're right near a chasm. You didn't explore the rest of the flat area you're on. So what do you want to do? Do you want to, because you had changed back into a cat after you failed to light that, I believe. So do you want to remain a cat? What do you want to do?
Like I said, I want to turn into a lemur and climb down.
Okay.
Very quietly.
Okay.
As quietly as I can.
So,
anyway.
To do that, we will... Let me get the dice. You hear those drums in the deep and those voices. Voices far away, hard to get a bead on. You can't really sense... yet what you can't really hear clear enough yet to know what type of language it is, though you do hear enough to know that it is probably not a common language. You want to change into a lemur. You're not on a specific time crunch at the moment, and with your alteration being a 5 anyway, you can change into the lemur. When you do, you can't see again.
What about those ones with those giant eyes?
An eye?
Uh-huh.
That's too small for you. You'd have to...
A big eye then?
You'd be a big eye, alright.
Even though eyes are about this big?
No, eyes are only about 6 inches tall. From what I remember about the creature. You can tell me in the comments below if I'm wrong. Or if I'm right.
I don't care if it's big. I want to get down there. Well, I care if it doesn't fit. But I want to get down there.
Well, from what you're feeling around you, kind of spatial awareness that you have, just being able to kind of sense it, you're in a really big open spot. and that drop-off is very much a large drop-off. You can change into an eye. You may have seen some of those before.
Climbing on my house.
This isn't the appropriate habitat for an eye, but okay.
It's open
You've
legend.
seen it somewhere, yes. And the setting is not open. The setting is a setting.
Then why is it called open legend?
Because that's the system, not the setting. But we'll say that you've seen something similar to that, perhaps, and you kind of shift into an eye. Eyes are able to see a lot better in the dark than perhaps a cat might be, so you do get a bit more of the vision is all in black and white when you're in these forms that have a boon of blind sight, at least sight-wise blind sight. So
They don't like looking outside where it's really bright.
you have to speak up for people.
They don't like. I don't think they like looking at where it's really bright.
Right. So, you change into the eye. You get a bit more of the vision. You can see a bit farther. You can see. You weren't seeing but like 5 or 10 feet in front of you before, but now you're seeing about 10 to 15 feet, and you find that as you kind of walk around as your eye form before going over the edge, still hearing the drums, you are able to to see an edge or a wall to this little platform that you've come onto. So you can either explore more on the platform, or you can go down, or you can climb up. It's up to you.
I also turned into that because it has a thumb.
Yes, it can climb really well.
Especially on trees.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's where they live.
Right.
I want to go down.
You want to go down? Okay.
Where the drums are.
Where the drums are. Okay. So you see, as you're kind of starting to come down, you can tell that you can hear. Well, make me a perception check, actually.
7.
7.
What's my perception?
Your perception is right there. So 7, and you're supposed to roll something else with it.
A 1d4?
Mm-hmm. A d4. A d4. That one. No, you already got a 7 on that one.
2.
Plus 2, so add that up yourself.
9.
All right. And let me get some statistic to roll as well. And I will see if you detect that. So you keep going down, and as you're moving and kind of making your way down, you see a very faint glow, much more like a soft glow. You look down there as a cat and you couldn't see it, but as an eye, you are climbing down, and way down below you, like probably 200 feet below you, you can see this faint glow, and it's just enough of a glow that you can tell there's a floor down there, and it's shaped like it's coming out of a doorway, but it is so faint that you can just barely make it out. But it gives enough light that you can start to kind of see that there is a floor down there.
Okay. What do I see when I get near the floor?
Well, it takes a while to climb down. Do you want to go ahead and continue down towards the light?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So as you continue down towards the light, it takes a while to get down there, and you hear, even with not being able to really pay attention to what you're hearing, trying to focus on climbing, which actually you would need to, let's go ahead and call it an agility roll, since you're an II, and because we do not have stats for an II, you will roll your own agility, which is a d20 plus
a d8.
All right, which means
7 and a 5. 12.
Okay. So, with that 12, again, you get really close down there, but the drums are very loud, and you can tell they're coming from down there. You continue to make it down. A 12 is enough as an II to be able to get down there. It's not smooth stone. There are handholds. It's pretty easy to get down to where you're going. You continue down, and you make your way. It takes a good while to get down there, like I said, but as you're going down, you can see, you can hear up above you from where you came from, that there are voices up there now. And again, you've come far enough that you can't make out those voices either. You're kind of at the midpoint before you are able to, you hear somebody up there, but they seem to be talking at a normal volume. It seems to start out real low and then go up to a normal talking volume, at least for inside of a cave. And you can tell someone's up there now. Like, they went up to where you were, and there's more than one of them. And then you can tell that they don't know where you went. They don't even know anyone up there, if anyone's still up there. They know someone was, because a noise like that is not common in the caves, but they don't know that you still are. So they start to make their way down, and as they make their way down, you hear them call. You hear them call out, "Eldito!" And
I think that means who's there, but I'm not sure.
Well, you don't think so, because what happens next is a light, a soft glow comes out from not everywhere around you, but rather along a little bit of a wall there. You see that some of these little mushrooms are uncovered, and they're phosphorescent. So someone had covered up those mushrooms and made sure it was really dark in here. The Ondito must have meant to take off the covering, because it kind of goes where you were. There was a little bit, and you see some more light up there from some kind of phosphorescent glow. The glow below you is a very light blue coming from that door, but this is more of a green glow, a green phosphorescence that sheds just enough light that as an II you're able to make out, oh, there's the ledge up there where I was, but then along that ledge there's a thin, along that larger flat ledge that you were on, there is a smaller sloping ledge that starts to wind its way down, and you can tell that this cavern that you're in is somewhat cylindrical, because it comes from your plateau you were on down and winds around and goes clockwise down to the spot below where that door, that doorway that has the bluish light coming out of it is. And you know you traveled a long way before, and you couldn't see really well, but this is even further down, and this sloping ramp way has phosphorescence that had been covered up, and now you see that there's actually several people in here. A good number of people are in here, and they're not tall or even normal sized. They're actually small sized. Not
Dwarves?
like this big. They look smaller than dwarves. They look,
I know what they are, but I forgot the name.
they look smaller than dwarves. They've got these, they seem to have these big noses.
No.
No, they're not gnomes either. They're smaller than gnomes. They're about half the size of a dwarf. So they are about maybe 2.5, maybe 3 foot tall. They're about as tall as a goblin, but they've got these long noses that are pale. You can tell in the light that they're definitely pale. You can't tell if they're what color it is because the phosphorescence is distorting it, but that's really pale white or a really light peach color or something like that.
I turn.
But, well, hold on. But they're all covered in rags from head to toe. They've got aside from the nose, they've got gloves and rags, and all probably black from what you're guessing, though they may just be really dark colors. And
Like
they
gray?
don't look like good clothes. They look like they've just taken a bunch of rags and wrapped themselves in just layers of rags and are now wearing that. And they've got it so heavy on themselves that you can't even properly see their face or anything. You can just see that nose kind of sticking out, and you know there's eyes in there somewhere. But they got the cowl on, they got a hood on. Some of it has a cape and some of the hoods don't. And you can tell there's eyes in there because sometimes they'll reflect the phosphorescence. But this cylinder that you're in is wide enough that they don't automatically spot you, this little small creature that you are. They don't automatically spot you coming down. So you're still safe, but that's what you see. And you see, looking down below, since they took the phosphorescence off, or took the covers off their phosphorescence, they have a little encampment down there. And that's what you're seeing down there. They don't even have a fire, so they just had a little encampment right there.
So they're tiny?
They are really small. I'm not sure about the size categories in Open Legend.
Big?
No. They're about this big. They're smaller than you, yes. They're smaller than your human form. So they're about 2.5, 3 feet tall.
Well, they're tiny men.
They are. They're really small men-ish creatures. You can't really tell.
I transform into what looks like their clothes and them.
Are you going to do that now or when you get down there?
I'm going to do that when I get on the floor.
Okie dokie.
Is there a pillar?
There aren't. There's.
Or is it just
You're only about halfway. But since they've uncovered the light, go ahead and make a new perception check, because there is new information to relay. That's persuasion. Yeah.
18 and 4, which is max.
Which means, okay, so that means 18 plus 4.
22.
22, and then this explodes, which means you roll it again. And see how much it is, and you add it even more.
3.
So, 20 what?
5.
Okay. 25.
Which is high.
Total. That's quite a bit higher than you needed, yeah. It's a good roll. So, 25. That means that, you see that they've got this little encampment, and then down below, there are some kind of broken ruin-looking stuff.
Maybe they found the lost city of Atlantos.
Atlantos? No.
Apollos then.
No. No, Apollos was the sun deity. But you get that information. You get roll done, and so you start to look down there, and you see that they're way down below. There is, as you're getting closer and closer, you make out there's stone croppings on the bottom of the place, and that you don't think that they are made. They're not stalagmites, the pointy things that come up from the ground from stuff dripping from the ceiling in caves. They're not that. They look like they are columns that have had things drip on them. They look like they were worked stone. And as you get closer and further down there, you can tell that some of the slope at the very bottom looks like it was worked stone as well, like it was carved. There's and on the floor near the ramp, there's also this worked stone that is in squares that are probably squares that are not made by these individuals, because these squares seem carved directly into the stone in a very precise way. And the get-up of these people that are going up, that are coming back down to this area, don't give you the confidence that they are the ones that would make such a precise measurement and work. In fact, as you're continuing down, you see they've got a barrel down here that they must have gotten in some other way, because a barrel wouldn't have came the way that you came. There's a little tent they've got set up, just like a regular A-frame tent, and then there's a lean-to type tent with this just a tarp where they seem to have a table setting, probably for food. That's at least what you kind of get, because there's mushrooms and dead rat and just different little bits and bobs of meat and root vegetables of some kind on a table in there that doesn't even have silverware or plates or anything, just there to like grab and get a nosh and a bite on. And as you get closer and down into this place, the stonework that you're holding on to gets a little bit harder to hold on to, but not so much that you start to fall. And you make your way down, and you get on the ground, and you see that around this doorway that you were coming down to, that the light was coming out of, are all different types of intricate carvings. It's a very tall, some narrow for its size, arched door, and within it there's this very soft glow. It seems almost softer than the phosphorescent mushrooms glow. In fact, it is. And the only reason it seems like the light's coming out more is because sometimes it flares up a little bit brighter, but it always goes back down to that really, really, really soft glow.
Like the ocean when it goes
like waves, yeah. And that ebb and that flow of the light. You begin to stop and get on the ground and start to shift into one of these things like you wanted to.
I may not know what they look like on the inside, but I can tell what they look like on the outside.
Right.
And if I see one eat, I'll just do that with my hand.
So, as you're starting to shift into these things, you're getting better looks at them. And at first, you thought they were like, well, maybe they're tiny dwarves all wrapped up or something like that, like you were thinking. But no, you look back and you're like, no, I know what these things are. They're dark folk. One of them helped me get away from Granny Snook's sister, which we're gonna have. Hey, in the comments below, why don't you help us name Granny Snook's sister? How about that? But that's behind the scenes. Back to the description. As you get into this, you can tell as you got down here, they don't smell very good. They kind of stink a lot. Like bad body odor. like they never wash their rags. And
Well, that's just because they're dark folk. They don't get to do that often at all.
well, from what you understand about dark folk, they don't do that. And they also don't let anybody see underneath their rags. It is a secret what is under their rags. So it is not common knowledge, I'll put it that way. And you don't know, because the only dark folk that you knew didn't take off his rags either. So you kind of get understanding that this is like, oh, this is like the dark folk that helped me, not like just wrapped up gnomes. You kind of get a better idea to shift and move, and because they haven't spotted you, you're able to get an idea of this way and that way, and you watch a couple of them and you go, and it's not hard for you to change into one of them, but it might be a little bit difficult to do so quietly. So you need to roll an agility roll to be stealthy about it.
Why don't I do a stealth roll?
Because that's what agility does. You can use your agility to do stealthy things. So a D8. Nope. If the D4 is a pyramid, then the D8 is a pyramid on a pyramid.
A 1 and a 3.
Ooh, a 1 and a 3.
That's
so
bad.
That's not very good.
It's 4.
So that changes a little bit. Go ahead and roll me an alteration to see how fast you're changing. Which your alteration is you roll a d20 plus
2d6.
2d6. So get your d6s. You need 2 of them.
7, 2, 6. 15.
15?
I think that's enough, maybe?
Okay. So, as you're shifting and changing, you forget about the barrel that's right beside you. There was a barrel with a bucket sitting on it, and some papers are on another desk over on the other side, and there's a dark folk sitting down there poring over the papers. And as you kind of shift and move, you bump that, and the metal bucket goes and that dark folk there, and then the other dark folk that are on the rock slope kind of all look down at you, but by the time they do, you are fully changed. So you look like a dark folk, but they all look at you, and their beady dark eyes are looking at you. What do you do?
I walk to the food. I walk to the food.
You just walk over to the food?
Mm-hmm.
Don't do anything?
Yes.
You hear one of the dark folk go, the one at the table goes,
I don't know what that means.
So what do you do?
I don't know.
You just stop then? Look at him? Or keep going towards the food? Or
I don't know what he said, so I don't know what I'm gonna do.
okay, so if you don't know what you're gonna do,
I guess I'll just look at him and go like, but he can't see my eyebrows, so I'll just
look at him. He goes, he points over
I pick
towards
it up and put it on the barrel.
Okay, so you do that. He starts to turn around and look at goes back to his pen, because he was writing with a quill when you did that. It made him mess it up, and it's like, looks at you. sniffs the air. And he's gonna roll something here. 2. Let me look. You don't get to see. All right. He just looks at you. Let me see over here. You don't know what he's doing, but he's got his eye on you. He kind of goes back to his writing. The others kind of, you see him shake their head. They go back to what they're doing. The others seem to be along this slopeway. They seem to be looking and trying to find certain things or examine it. Examine is the correct word. They're examining the whole thing. So they continue to do their work. Everybody's kind of watching you.
I don't know what he said, but since you said he was pointing at the bucket and doing...
Yeah.
I think he wants me to pick up the bucket.
Right, you went to pick up the bucket, and that's what made him go ahead and turn around. And you, yeah, that's what you think he probably meant for you to do. So you put the bucket back up. What do you do after you put the bucket back on there? Because
I go to the food and see and examine what there is, like those vegetable things.
Okay, so the vegetables look like a cross between a carrot and a potato. Most of them. You can tell that they've got smaller barrels for their food. And the food that they've got sitting under this canvassed lip of a overhang, it's got a natural depression in the stone there. And it appears to be, as you're looking around and looking at the food, it appears that this whole area was at one time stone that was smooth and worked and had carvings or other things on it, or was just smooth to be nice looking, but has since worn away and has gone back to more of a natural stone from some type of thing happening to it. There's lots of cracks and damage on it. And you're looking at the different little barrels that they've taken. They seem to be like those
barrels from the
tater carrot things and regular potatoes, other tubers that you don't really know what are, and
I get a potato.
You get a potato?
And I eat it.
Okay. You eat a potato. It is not washed.
Okay.
So
I look where they can't see my mouth.
Okay.
So they don't see my mouth.
Okay. So you go ahead and you grab a potato, and you think they don't seem to pay you any mind. You're just getting a potato or something like that. You look around, kind of see that. You kind of look at the columns that are there, the ones that are just, they look like they've had that water drip on them, or some kind of stone, some kind of sediment get on them, and they look like columns with vertical indentions in them that go up and down. Most of the time straight. They go 1, 2, 3, 4, but the fourth one closest to where you're guessing leader of the dark folk down here is sitting underneath his personal little half tent, his personal little awning with the little makeshift desk that he has. You see that it is broken, that particular one is broken, and that he seems to be, he'll get off his little stool that he has and he'll go over and look at it occasionally. It seems like the top caps have writing on them, some kind of writing, but not the...
Is there pictures?
it's not pictures. It's more like you think that that's probably some kind of language type thing. Maybe it was like a name at the top or something. But running vertically up and down them, there's no other decoration, just those circular indentions, that smooth circular. I'm not sure what it is on a column when it's that way, but they look like that type of column.
They look like one from ancient Egypt?
No, Egyptian columns were usually smooth, from what I understand about it.
Well, what about them being a bit... What about the ruined-ish ones?
They look like they were all supposed to look the same. So they were probably made around the same time. But it's at the top that they have the writing. And then the bottom ones all have this sediment around them that's just this hard formed stone. So they're useless to look at.
Well, I look around once I'm done with my potato, obviously.
Okay. So you eat on the potato as if you're kind of taking a break. And no one's bothering you right at the moment. If you're specifically looking around for things, go ahead and make me
I'm looking for the dark folk that helped me get out.
Well, there's lots of dark folk, so there's no guarantee that he's one of the ones here.
Well, I look around, and what do I see if I look around for him? When I look around for him.
Okay. So, you're not under pressure, so you don't actually need to roll for that, but I do want you to roll me. You did say you were looking for some particular dark folk, so you can roll me a D100. So
8 and 70.
So
78.
78. All right. You don't see your buddy kind of glancing around, or at least the one that helped you. You don't know if you'd call him a friend, but he was one that helped you. So you both wanted to get away from Granny Snook's sister. You kind of look around, kind of keep yourself looking around and kind of glancing. You don't see anything crazy pop up or anything. The archway that we talked about before, the doorway that has the light coming out of it, it seems to be the most interesting thing, because everything seems to lead towards it. Including this odd investigation that these dark folk are making. You can tell that as you look closer at the doorway, all you see is just that soft light ebbing and flowing.
I start to get closer, a bit closer, slowly, examining the room, but getting closer to that door.
Okay, so you kind of mosey your way over. You see that on the bottom, this seems to be the most well-preserved spot. This archway, this tall, thin archway. And when I say thin, it's relatively thin. You kind of look up and kind of get a gauge. It's probably 30 feet tall as a doorway, but that doorway is only maybe 12 feet across. So it's very tall, but thin. And around it, there seems to be similar carvings to like what the other dark folk, from what you can tell, is looking at over there, like the names or the words or something at the top of those columns.
Maybe this was a dark folk temple.
Well, as you look, you never saw the dark folk write before, so you don't know. But there's these shapes, and these words probably is what they were at the top, and then there seems to be just some decoration, fluting. That's the word, fluting. There's this decorative fluting down the sides of the door, and then at the bottom, when it comes to the floor, there's some more of that. It doesn't seem decorative fluting there. It seems to be at the corners of the door and at the top of the door, where some kind of name or title or whatever plate is some laurel leaves.
What are laurel leaves?
Like those things that they would wear on their head for the Olympic Games and stuff. Those type of leaves.
They wear leaves?
The gold things they wear on the top of their head.
Bandanas?
No. I'll show you later.
Talk about that later.
But it's like a little crown of leaves. Just comes around like this.
Oh, you mean those?
But it's not. Yes, but it's not a crown. It is just those leaves, and the branch and stuff like that they would be on. And then up at the top, there seems to be about the same. But it's that type of leaf, but it has berries on it. And along the bottom, close to the floor, until it starts to hit those spots where it's rough and hasn't been. It's starting to go back to natural stone from some kind of wear and tear. Until it reaches there's this border. And then the rest of that whole wall is fairly smooth, aside from the damage that has started to come up, like we said, from the wear and tear. And within there, you can tell there's a little room in there. There's some kind of room in there.
Wait, maybe it's the king's. Maybe we shouldn't go in there. I'm not sure if the king has ever been in there.
Don't know. You can't whisper. They can't hear you.
I'm talking to myself.
Well, as you get closer to the door, you kind of mosey on up there. You can tell that it's something that this archway leads into a little hall. And you kind of look. And the guys that are watching you closer now. Especially the one that was from at the desk. So
I start to go back to the food.
Okay. He looks over at you, says, "Ot, ot."
Then I look at him.
He says,
I go towards the food.
and he starts to stand up and he says, points towards the slope where the others are.
I go up
with
there.
his feather. With his quill. So, okay. So you got him. Alright. You start to go back up that way. The others kind of look at you and says, says another.
I go up.
How far? Because like we said, it's like a 200-foot descent, and this slopes around the whole of that cylinder. There's probably...
I go to the upper part. I go to the upper part now.
Well, you start to get about halfway up, and they start to look at you like, "Ot, get well, warriors."
I go up further.
All right, you keep going past the one that was talking to you. Ot, he says to the one beside him.
Hey, hey.
Do you say that?
No.
Okay. You think they're saying that?
I think they're saying that.
Oh. So, you go up and you keep going on, and they kind of watch you, the two that you passed, the one that was talking to you and stuff, and you keep going up and going up. By the time you get past the second little grouping of them, past about the mid-mark is where that one stopped you and said, "Hey, hey," or what you think is "Hey, hey." They say, but one steps out in front of you and goes, "Ot."
He says, "Hold."
And
And I go further down. And I go down.
So you start going back down, and he's like, oh. He looks to the side of his side and talks to his friend, like, and that one starts to follow you down.
I go out of. I go to where I was when I first came in. Okay.
Okay.
I go there.
Back down to the bottom?
No, I go where I came in.
Oh, that's all the way at the top. That's past the guy that stopped you.
Why? Well, why is he stopping me then?
Because you're not doing what the others are doing.
What are they doing?
They're looking at the walls. From what you can tell, they're looking at the walls, looking at things, looking for things, you don't know.
I go to the first one and kind of go in there, start looking around. Where the first guy stopped, say, hey, or wait.
So at the mid mark, halfway up the thing, you go back down to the halfway mark. He's just looking at the walls. They're looking at the stone itself and kind of touching around occasionally, looking close, touching around, feeling.
I go further down than them and I look around. Is this high or low?
If you stopped at the mid, if you went past the people, went back down past the people that were at the mid mark, the dark folk at the mid mark that stopped you.
I went in to where they were.
They're not in anywhere. They're on this about 5 foot to 8 foot ledge that is the ramp that comes down and around this cylinder.
Okay, that's where I go on to then.
That's what you've been walking on this whole time.
I thought you said climb. I thought you said I was climbing.
Climb as in go up, not climb as literally climb.
Oh.
You've been walking up. You've been climbing in elevation. You've been walking up this ramp.
I go a bit further down than them.
Okay, you go down the ramp some more. All right, you descend some.
And I go about, this is the top and this is the bottom. I go down to this part.
You go down to the bottom of this cylinder?
I go here. This is where it's coming in. This is where they are probably. So I go here.
They're all along the ramp. So if you're looking at the ramp like this, there's some here, and then a few feet, then several feet further, like maybe 20 feet further, there's there, and then maybe 10 feet after that, there's another little group. They're usually about 2 of them each, kind of looking around. And there's, from your count, because you've walked up and down this whole thing almost, so from your count, there's probably 50 of them in here or so,
I go down to the, where a group
50 is a little bit much. There's probably like 30 of them in here.
I go to a group of 2 and I start doing what they are doing.
Okay. So, you start to do what they're doing. You're trying to pretend to do what they're doing?
No, I do what they're doing.
Right, but you don't know what they're doing. You don't know the reason behind what they're doing.
Because I do want to examine the place.
Okay, so you do start to examine the place. All right.
Like feel the walls.
Right. Okay, so go ahead and roll me a perception. The 4. Well, there's no time crunch on this, so you don't actually have to roll me a perception. But that one that was following you, he kind of comes beside you and starts to work too and watch you. So make me a deception roll to keep pretending good enough that you are a dark folk. So you roll a d20 plus what? Your deception.
1d8.
Okay.
10 and 8, 18.
18? Okay.
I think that's high enough.
It's high enough, you think, because he doesn't do anything, but you can tell he's still suspicious of you. And the others are just kind of doing their thing. You're looking, you're just keeping up the act, looking around, and as you're looking around, you are examining the walls as well. You can tell you kind of have an idea what they're looking for. There's occasionally a part of a symbol in the wall, but again, it's eroded, or there's been drainage where it's kind of crusted on, so there's this this embossed and beveled effect that happens to the stone. It's gotten rough from this.
So I look for what I'm thinking they're looking for.
Okay. You keep looking around, and they seem to be looking to try and piece together information about the whatever was at one point either on this wall or had to do with these ruins. You don't really know what they're looking for specifically, but it seems to be related to that. It seems to be related to whatever they're finding there. Whatever's going on in the glowy room probably has the information, or wherever they came from maybe had information or stuff like that.
Okay, do I see any of those? Do I see any symbols on the wall?
You see a symbol every now and then while you're looking around.
At it.
And they look. You point it out to them, and they look at it and they say, and they show you that they wrote that one. They pull out a piece of paper from within their many folds of nasty rags, and they point at it and they say,
So I go a bit further down than them and see over there.
Okay. You go to a different spot. You go down the ramp.
I go on the other side of them and start doing there.
Okay, so you go down the ramp a bit to the other side
of those two people.
Right. It's a wide cylinder. It's very large.
Yeah, but I go on.
So you do descend and go down.
These are the two people, and I go on this side of them.
Oh, you just go on the other side of them then.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So they see you move over there, and they're like, and you see that they do occasionally talk to each other about what they're writing down and recording. But this other one follows you to the other side, and he comes on the other side of you, further down the ramp, and he keeps an eye on you. You just start to look.
Do I see anything? Do I find any symbols?
Keep looking. You find some more symbol. There's probably a picture where you are right now, because you kind of see the bend of a person, or like a shoulder maybe, or maybe it's a knee or a butt or something, a shape, a curved shape. Maybe it's something else. But then there's another, like almost a finger or a hand up there.
I show him it. I point it out to him.
All right. So you kind of they see you, and you point it, and you're like, yeah. And they have to kind of stretch to see what you're seeing, because they're short and they're not used to looking up to see a lot of things. As far as examination goes, or spending a lot of time looking up, you'd be surprised how little time people spend looking up. And so they kind of look at that, and then they look at their notes, and they add a little bit of they kind of look back and forth, and they add a little bit of a bend on their, not necessarily doodle, but their notes. They seem to be making a replica of what they're finding here that is relevant as you look at their pad. And you can tell they're kind of piecing together this picture, maybe, or writing, or script.
I keep looking, but I look further down.
Okay, you keep looking further down the wall, not further down the ramp.
Wall.
Okay. So you keep working down further on the wall. You see similar things to that, but as you glance back on when they were writing that note on their paper, you notice that that's probably a mark they already had and stuff. So you kind of get a similar feeling.
So I look above where he is.
Okay. How long are you wanting to spend to do this examination?
Maybe an hour or two.
Spend an hour or two helping them? Okay. As you spend an hour or two helping them, eventually the other guy, that other dark folk, goes back up to his friend, and he doesn't seem to come back to you. You seem to have assuaged their suspicions for now. About an hour or two pass, and you've picked out a couple things, but nothing substantial has been added to their stuff. So that's where you are after about an hour. They're still working. After about an hour, they're still working at it.
I go down to get some food.
Okay. So
like a carrot potato.
Cartato or whatever it is.
Potato.
Cartato or
Cartato.
A parrot. A parrot. That's what it is. Pocarrot. The boss, as best you can kind of get, the leader, kind of watches you come down, and
is he pointing at me?
He says something to you, and then points up and around as he's talking, and points back to you.
He wants me to do that more, doesn't he?
You don't know. You don't speak dark folk.
I want to learn that language.
Well.
Okay. I go back up, and...
Well, as you start to go back up, he's like...
Where is he pointing? Up, down, or at me?
He points at you. He points over towards the food. He points up, and he points back to you, and over towards the food and stuff.
I think he's saying I can get food. So I go to the food.
Okay.
We're just skipping to the food, please.
So you go to the food.
I get a carrot.
Okay.
That's what I want to call him. I get up a carrot, and I eat it. I start to eat it a bit while I head back up.
Okay. As you start to head back up, he's like, he turns around on his stool and he says, and he slaps his head. He points over at the food and stuff, and he says, and points up towards the ramp.
I go back down to the food and then eat it. Because I am hungry.
Okay. Well, you eat it. He kind of looks back at you occasionally.
I have no idea what he's saying. I'm just doing what he points. I head back up and continue helping them.
Okay. As you start to go back up, he gets off of his thing. He comes over to you, and you've kind of transformed into a mid-range one. He's a little bit taller, and he looks down at you with his beady little eyes, and he says, and smacks you on the head. Points over to the stuff and points up there.
I examine the wall.
He starts to look, and he's going to make a roll. You've got to make me another deception to, if we're going to have a contested roll here, you've got to make me another deception roll. Because he's starting to not necessarily believe what we've got going on here. So roll yours.
11 and 8. 19.
Okay, that's a pretty good roll. All right, you beat his roll. So he looks. And he kind of twists your head around and looks up your nose, this transformed nose you have. Like, oh. Kind of puts his hand. He kind of puts his hand underneath some of your folds that you've made of clothes, and he's like, "Oh," feels you. Starts talking to you.
I go look at him. I look at him like this.
Well, you're looking at him, yeah. He's right in front of you. He's not letting you go anywhere. He's like, Kind of takes you, doesn't drag you, but kind of takes your arm. Kind of takes your arm by the wrist and starts pulling you over towards the tents.
I transform one of my fingers into a carrot.
You transform one of your fingers into a carrot? Okay.
Just kidding. No, I'll just do that if he's saying that's mine, or you're not supposed to eat that.
Okay.
I'm getting ready to do that, or getting ready to transform into something. Transform something into something.
Okay.
Just in case.
All right. So he kind of leads you over to the one of the tents. It's not the small. There's about 4 tents in here. No, 3 tents in here. And one of them there's a larger one, and then a smaller one, and then a medium-sized one. And he takes you to the medium-sized one. It has a symbol on the side of it. You're not quite sure what the symbol is.
Do you think they know English or what I speak?
You don't know. Haven't tried. The other dark folk that you met that helped you spoke a common language. But he starts taking you into the middle-sized one with the symbol on it.
That may have been no on the first one, so no, never mind.
Okay. So he opens it up, and you see that there's some instruments in here for, not instruments like music, but medical instruments in here.
Oh.
A few like a blade and a little bitty bone saw, and like a little bitty hammer for checking reactions, and all that type of stuff you would see in a doctor's office, and then some things you would see in a torture office. And then there's this little stool and a cot, 2 cots in here, and there's a dark folk sitting over there who has on his rags kind of painted this symbol that was on the outside of the tent.
Oh no, he's gonna examine me.
And and this guy then sets you down on the stool, and he points over at for what you know, the other one with the symbol on him. He says, and points over at you, and they start to doing one of them, the leader smacks his head a couple times and points at you, and then points at where his ears would be, and then points at you, and then
he's gonna examine my ears.
And then he looks at you. The doctor looks over at you. For what you're guessing, the examiner, the doctor, the medic, the whatever this particular dark folk is, whatever they would call it anyway. He looks over at you and he's like nods, and the leader leaves, kind of looking at you as he goes out, and then the doctor's like,
he's gonna check my ears, isn't he?
He starts to bend down and examine you. And
he's taller than me?
Well, you're sitting on the stool, I said.
Oh.
The leader set you down on a stool. So he kind of sets you down on the stool, and you're sitting on the stool, and he's looking at you, kind of feels your rags, puts his hand under some of your rags, and he's like, kind of feels under your rags again. And then he grabs your nose and looks up your nose.
Ew.
Big old nose, and kind of looks at your eyes. And then as he's kind of looking you over, it's just kind of And then you see in his eyes a knowingness. And you see that
he's the one who helped me.
No, you see that he knows you're not a dark folk for real. And that's where we'll end the episode. Bum bum bum. So we'll have to see what happens to Moon when he's been found out as not being a dark folk.
Caesar,
yes, Caesar, you are correct, not Moon. Caesar, yes, you are correct, not Moon. But yeah, that's what we have going on. We hope that you enjoyed this. We hope that you tune in next time, because I'm interested to see what he does too. I don't know. We'll find out. There's like we said, there's around 30 dark folk in here. So
in this room?
No, in this project that they're doing. So we'll see what happens. Tune in next time. We'll just have to see. We thank you for stopping in. Do remember that everything on the Planar Crossroads is brought to you not through YouTube or sponsorships that we have of any kind at the moment, but rather by travelers and viewers like you. Thank you.
And why do you do that like PBS Kids?
Because it's like PBS Kids. Tell them bye.
Bye.
Have a great day. God bless. Goodbye. This content was made possible by travelers and viewers like you. Thank you.